Greetings and welcome to the Australian Muscle Car Magazine podcast series. My name is Ray Berghaus. I'm the founder of Chevron Publishing and Australian Muscle Car Magazine. Each episode of our podcast series will feature a guest who made a lasting contribution to the muscle car community in Australia, from racing's best-known names to those who worked long and hard behind the scenes. Keep in mind, some of these recollections will be our best guesses as to what actually happened, but rest assured we promise not to let too many facts get in the way of a good yarn. We hope you enjoy the listening experience as we do our best to share stories from the golden era of Australian motor racing.
This afternoon in the studio we have what could be classified, I guess, as motor racing and motor rallying royalty. We have Colin Bond with us today, and having Colin in the studio is an absolute pleasure. Colin and I have known each other for 50 some odd years, maybe 60 years, a very, very long time. Colin, good afternoon. Let's start at the very beginning. What got you into motor racing in the first place? What was the thing that opened that door?
Look, it was a combination of a few things, I think, Ray, because, a mate I went to school with, Andy Frankel, his father was in the ARDC, and we'd jump in his car and go up to Mount Druitt in the old days, and see all these TCs rushing around with the occasional, Austin Healey or something, or Aston Martin. But I was always interested in cars. I guess that's the other thing, because, when I finished my schooling, I did become a mechanic, because I thought, well, that might help if I'm going to go into that sort of thing. But in saying that, before even, I was actually being paid to play soccer. I played first grade soccer for Gladesville Ride, which was one of the main teams at the time. After being sort of asked if I'd go and join Alfa or something, they're Italians, who I went there and they could only speak Italian, they couldn't speak English, and a Coa or something like that, and they could only speak their language. And of course, Gladesville Ride was just an old lot of Poms that probably couldn't make it in third grade in England at the time. So that was a bit of fun, and we got paid. But in doing that, I just felt that eventually it'd be nice if you could actually be a professional sportsman. And sounded good, you work on the weekends and have the rest of the week off, but that doesn't happen, of course. But anyhow, we were pretty good at golf in those days, and most ball sports we played. But the motorsport was interesting, because I thought there was probably only two sports that I could think of, and one was golf and the other was motor racing, where in those days you could still win events when you're 50. Most of the other sports, tennis elbow for the tennis players or something, and all the footballers bad knees and what have you. And I think it was a wise choice in there, because, here we are now, 80, for God's sake, and everything still works. Like, you can still walk around the block and play golf and do all those sorts of things. So it was a good combination of that. The other thing I think that really got me into it was probably the Reddix trials in the early days, because it was sort of funny, because George Shepherd, who finished up being a navigator, he also went to the same school, and his father was managing director of Reddix Oils at the time, and so we used to pretend that we were in the Reddix trials on our push bikes, because where we were in Huddersfield and Gladesville and that, there were lots of bush tracks and things, and you sort of rushed around them on your push bike pretending to be a rally driver. So that was sort of the interest, and so really, I guess, once we sort of got a car, and, we got a bug-eyed Sprite, which was a competitive car, because we had a few cars before that, but like Austin 7s or Singer 9s, and they weren't one of the better cars, of course. But we joined the MG Car Club in those days.
That would have been in the early 60s, 61, 62?
Absolutely, yeah. And look, we just competed in car club stuff, we were actually new champion, I think, of the MG Car Club at one stage, because we used to compete in just about everything that was on in the Sprite, and particularly, motor cars in those days were quite a big thing. So, yeah, it was interesting as well. And I think that going to motor cars, even though today it's different. I think they've made these four-wheel steer cars and all that sort of stuff. But in our day, they were just the cars you had, Minis and Sprites. And
it was the day of you run what you run.
Oh, exactly. Datsun Fair Ladies or something.
Exactly. Well, I did. I had Volkswagens at the same time, and just basically bog standard 1200cc Volkswagen.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But, you know, what it learned, which I think was quite a good exercise in general, was that to go fast in the slaloms and all that type of thing, you really have to be quite direct, precise, and don't waste any time or distance, you know. And it was always the fast way to do. If you look spectacular and was sliding out and hanging it out, it looked as though you should be going fast, but 9 times out of 10 you weren't. So it was just sort of an exercise you learn there, and then you take it on through the rest of your career, you know, whether you're hill climbing, you know, rallying or racing.
So the Sprite was the first proper racing car, or proper car that you went racing in.
Yes.
Maybe 2 years worth of Sprite racing, was that about right?
I think we sort of modified the Sprite, and we did a couple of races at Warwick Farm. I think they were only club days, and then at Norham Park. And we were still on Michelin tyres in those days, and some of the good guys actually had race tyres on their bloody bug-eyed Sprites or whatever, so they were a bit faster.
Dunlop green spots, white spots?
They would have been green spots. They couldn't. That was well before the pink spots and the yellow spots. But anyway, look, it was okay. And in '64 there was going to be an Ampol round Australia trial, and we'd actually rallied the poor old bug-eyed as well with Andy, you know, and the first one we ever did, you know, we got hopelessly lost, as you do, because you're on maps in those days anyway. And the road we were on came to an end. I thought I was doing really good because I was driving really well, but I wasn't overtaking anybody, but then no one was overtaking me because
you were on the wrong road.
So anyway, Andy said, look, there was a farmhouse back there. Just go and ask the farmer. He can show us where we are on the map, you know. And the farmer's there, and he looks at our map, and he says, "Hey, son, have you got another map?" Because we're miles. Anyway, so that didn't happen all that well. But anyway, we decided we'd run the Sprite in the Round Australia Rally in 1964. And then, you know, they said, "Oh no, you can't run the Sprite. It's got to be a fixed hard top, da-dump, and all that sort of stuff." Anyway, my brother was in the army at the time in New Guinea, and he said he's coming back, and could you look out for a car for me? You know, I said, oh sure. Anyway, we found this Volkswagen, a 1962 and a half Volkswagen or something. It had been stolen and stripped, so it was a complete car except it had no mudguards, doors, trim, had the motor, the gearbox, one wheel, no bonnet, you know. So we bought this thing, and then we rushed around all the wrecking yards, because one good thing about the Volkswagen, they all fit, all the makers, except they have different lights or something on different models. So we didn't care about that. So we put this thing back together again, and we ran it in the Round Australia Rally. It was in '64, and with Andy and George Shepherd and myself, three of us in a 40-horse Volkswagen, not all that fast, but we won the crew on the age of 25. You know, which in those days was worth 250 quid, I think, and it probably cost us that much to go in the event.
Oh, at least that much.
Oh, well, I don't know those days. I mean, it was, but look, and in doing so, we sort of bumped into Bob Holden, who was in the event as well, and he was talking about having this Lynx Peugeot he wanted to sell. So we thought, we had a look at it, you know, and we came back and that type of thing, and then, you know, he was going to race it at Norham Park, and I said, look, yeah, we'll buy it.
Now this is the first of your monoposto. This is the first racing car per se.
Proper. Yeah. Anyway, and we thought, what you do, you've got to actually buy it as it comes off the track. You don't let it out of your sight. Now this is the days when people would sell you something and go home, and you'd only come back with half the car that it was raced. Anyway, unfortunately for the Lynx, it broke an axle going over the dog leg. And one back wheel disappeared down the hill, sort of thing, and the car skidded to a stop. Anyway, so after the race, we said, well, we're still having it, you know, so we put it in the trailer, took it home, and we had a big garage, and I put it in the garage, and then I just sort of jacked it up and put a brick under the suspension and put the back wheel where it should be, sort of thing, right? And of course, Dad comes down from work and he wants to have a look at the car, and he goes down and he kicks the wheel and takes off down the garage. He looked at me and said, "Don't you think it's a bit brittle, son, this car? It's not very well built," or something. But anyway, but as it turned out, that was a really good car. We sort of didn't know what to do. They changed the rules a bit. I think the ARDC and them wanted to go to the world, like Formula 2 and things and everything else. And this was a Formula Libre car, which was still okay to race, but you were sort of restricted sometimes on where you could do it. And being like a Peugeot motor, it was 1500 initially. I think we made it 1600 because that was what they were originally, and supercharged. So the first race we went to, I think, was down to Hume Weir or something, and Hume Weir, on one day, they have about 10,000 practices and 500 races or something like that. I mean, it was just one of those great meetings where you line up on a dummy grid outside the circuit, and as soon as the other ones finish, off you go.
This was the early days of Alan Horsley.
Oh, was it? I don't know who was down there in those days, because this would have been, again, like 64-ish, I suppose, or something like that. Anyway, I didn't realise, but we were on pole. Because they said, "Oh, you're here," line up. And there was...
Nobody in front?
No. There was three across the front, but Thingo Walker, I heard he's Brabham.
Johnny Walker?
Rob. No, not Johnny Walker, the other one that went overseas.
Rob Walker.
No, Dave Walker. Robbie
David Walker, yes.
And he's going, "No, I should be on pole." I go, "You can have it." I don't care. But anyway, and off we went. That was a bit of fun. And we still did all right down there. So we thought, "Oh, this thing might be all right." And then there was a hill climb at Amaru Park, so we thought we'd give it a shot up the hill. And of course we won it. And we said, "Oh, it might be a hill climb car as well." Even though it was quite big for a hill climb car, because it was a full size, open wheeler, basically. And I used to always say, one good thing about it, I said, it's supercharged. I said, it runs on alcohol. I said, that's the car, not the driver. I mean, we took that everywhere, we did Catalina Parks, we did all sorts of things. And the 3 years that we really, campaigned it, we were 3 times New South Wales Hill Climb champion. And I think we had a record on every hill we ever went up. And we came second in 2 occasions on the Australian. The first time we went to Melbourne, and some young guy called Tim Schenken beat us on this white special sort of thing, which was a go-kart with a bloody aerial 4-square motor or something. And I used to say to Tim afterwards, "Is that how Ferrari gave you a drive? You went and you told him that you beat me or something?" But not really. And next time Alan Hamilton, we were over in Collingwood, and he had one of his Porsche Spider things there, and that he came first and I was second. And then the next time I think we did the train was at Bathurst, and Greg Cusack actually won it in the Brabham, because you go up the part, you come down,
Yes.
the track.
From Forest Elbow up to Skyline.
Yeah, and look, I think we'll still finish third or something, but it might have just been one of the other specialised hill climb cars then that beat us. But so that was good. And the fact that we also ran it at Bathurst, on the proper circuit, and we were as quick as most of the 2.5 litre cars. I think from memory it did 162.54 was the record, I think, down the straight. I've got no idea what that is in metric these days, but someone can work it out. And look, just that we sort of had drum brakes on the back, and our wheels and tyres weren't as big as what the Brabhams and things were. And it was really good fun to drive. Lots of success. And then I find this...
It was a pretty car too. It was a very attractive...
Oh, yeah, no, well, it was a bit fat, It's sort of funny because later on when, you talk to someone, they used to build race cars, they said, "Oh, it's probably a bit fat, we should have been skinnier," or something like that. But, they, John, Lynx Engineering, which is John Brudlin and Leon Thomas, they were actually quite clever engineers, and they... I mean, Kevin Bartlett had one, like as a Formula Junior, and I think a few of the others, doesn't matter now, and they were very competitive motor cars in their day. So
So now we're talking again mid-60s?
Yeah, we did it for, 3 years, so you're going from 64 up to 67, right? In that particular car. And then we sort of, at the same time, Mitsubishi, or Doug Stewart, turned out funnily actually, because Doug Stewart somehow had a bit of an in with Mitsubishi, and they sent these 2 Colt fastbacks out, which must have been the first attempt of Mitsubishi to build a car, because up until then it was the heavy industry, so they built planes and they built trains and battleships.
As the old gag goes, Mitsubishi, the wonderful people who brought you the aircraft who flew to Pearl Harbor.
Oh, that's exactly right. Well, I mean, we did a few things with Mitsubishi. One time they brought these 2 little Colt 50cc 2-stroke things out, right? And we went to take them down to the snow and leave them in the snow overnight and start them in the morning and all this sort of stuff. And then we're going to drive around Australia. And it was one of those ones where, probably the first time a 2-stroke, where you just put ordinary petrol in the tank and it had a container for the oil. And the oil was actually mixed by putting the on and off the throttle, pumped it through. Well, later on when we were doing these trips around, you just flat, of course, 360cc, and they kept on seizing the motors, and then so you put them in neutral and coast for a while, and let it cool down, and then you put it back into gear, and boom, 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 off it go, until we did an engine coming into Cooper Petey, but that's another story. You don't want to go there. But anyway, look, Mitsubishi was a bit of fun, but the original Colts, were a funny car. I mean, they weren't that good looking, but they were a fastback, but they were actually built. They had a very good build quality to them, I must admit. And even the back windows, I thought they were in houses, they used to go out like that, like a house would, but anyway. And these 2 cars came here, and Doug and them were supposed to just drive them around Australia and see if they'd work. And, the first time they got in the car, they're driving over the Harbour Bridge, and Doug went back to get some money out to pay the toll, and the seat broke. So they had to turn around and go back and weld the seat up. But there was Barry Lloyd and them and, quite a lot of the guys that used to do, Volkswagens in those days as well. Anyway, they ran these things around and they were just left here. So Bob Riley and I looked at one and we said, we could make a rally car out of this or something, because we didn't have one of those days. And we did. So, and one was a column change, one was a floor change. So we picked the floor change one, obviously, but not that it mattered. But as it turned out, the Mitsubishi got a bit enthused, with this thing. And I mean, the first rally we won, which was a major rally, was the KLG 500.
Oh, up the back of Hartley, around the
No, I think it was mainly down Narroway.
Oh, okay, earlier.
Yeah, and the difference was, it didn't matter. You didn't have to have a fast car. What would actually happen, they'd hand you the next route instructions at the control. And that got you the next control. And then when you got the next control, they'd hand you the next instruction. So it was up to the navigator a lot of the time to be quite good. And I had Brian Hope, of course, and he was brilliant. But anyway, we're at this one bit of road and everyone would take off and they'd go and stop while the navigator was trying to work out where it was. And I said to Hope, look, I know this road. I said, there's no turn-offs for at least 14k. So what I'll do, when we get going, I'll just go straight down to that junction and see if you've got something organised by then. So we get to the junction, turn left, So we're the only ones to clean it because we sort of wasted no time at the start. But in saying that, it was still one of the major rallies we used to do in those days. So after that, Mitsubishi would bring out a car every year, and the Colt became the same looking shape, but it went from 850cc's to 1,000 to 1,100. So every year it grew basically, and became more competitive. And they were so strong you couldn't break them if you tried. And we used to have fun with people like Billy. He used to drive the Volvo. It doesn't matter. We'd go through a stage. Bill Nolan, of course.
Oh, Bill, yes.
Anyway, and he'd have Squire Meyer with him, sort of thing. See? Anyway, we used to get him and say, what time do you do through there? Because don't forget we're timed to the minute. And, we did the same time. I said, I don't know what you get with your Volvo. It must be air conditioning and dustproofing or something. Certainly not the performance, right? So anyway, one night, I'm behind him on the road. And Bill's offered 1,000 and he could see these lights coming. And he said, I've never driven so hard in all my life, I'm not going to let that bloody Bondy catch me, you know what I mean? All this stuff. He gets to the control, looks back, and it was just the moon coming through the trees. So, I mean, here's me. But anyway, no, that was good. And look, honestly, apart from that, in the Round Australia rally, in the Volkswagens, Arthur Trelaw was the Volkswagen ahead of us, right? And he worked at Highcraft Carpet at Drummoyne. He was in charge of the canteen. And after the Round Australian, he sort of had a Colt, and then he bought a Blatt. And we looked at the Blatt and we said, well, gee, that's not a bad thing. It's nice size. It had drum brakes all round. It didn't really matter in the dirt, but it was anyhow. But the build quality on the car was absolutely appalling. You'd be driving along, you hit a bump and the bonnet would open, but it was hinged from the front. And then the faster you went, the higher the bonnet got, and you were sitting up in the car like this, trying to see over the bonnet. But if you hit another bump, well, it was up there, but it's shut again, see, And then you come to a gate, of course, and the navigator's got to get out and open the gate. The door wouldn't open. So the driver had to get out and open the gate and shut the gate. And you hit another bump and the door would open like, perfect again. But so we thought it was a bit of fun. I mean, Josie, I thought was his wife, I think it must have been his girlfriend or something, On a Saturday night, he'd say, come on, Josie, we're going out for a drive. Oh, are we? And she'd sit in the back of this rally car while we're off at 1,000, And she was knitting. She knit one, pearl one,
And of course, there probably was no seatbelt in the back seat.
I wouldn't have a clue. She'd just slide from side to side. I don't know. I mean, but, and you'd say, oh, that was close, Josie, wasn't it? Oh, was it? I just think, I don't think she'd ever driven. And I don't think she knew how dangerous it was. But anyway, I mean, they were good days. But look, we did race that car twice at Bathurst. In the 500. We thought, oh, well, why not? I mean, in those days, you did no preparation to the bloody things at all. You just drove up there, camped, in the camping area. And anyway, the first year, we were going along okay. And I came down the straight and turned onto Pitt Straight, which, it was a long straight in those days, and the front wheel fell off. And in those days, you're supposed to carry your own spare parts and tools, so you have to do your own. So I rush around the back and get the jack and jack it up. Get the wheel brace and go to the front. There's no wheel nuts. Go and get the wheel, and the brake drum and everything else is still attached. It's actually broken the hub. Sort of, here we go. Bloody hell. So they take it into the pits on the tow truck in those days. And Bob Ray looked at it and he said, oh my God, he said, we need a hub, and there's some guy sitting on he had a car there, and I said, the hub and brake drum? He said, yeah. Well, the brake drums, it already had grooves in them from, where the rivets had gone. So anyway, we got it on that, put that on, finished the race. Then handed back his brake drum. I mean, I don't know how he got home, but he would have. And then we had to get the car home, so we just gone in and got a welder, and we're electric welding up the hub. And we look at it and go, boom, and brake and weld. But we sort of got it enough, and we drove it all the way home, but we're just being careful every time we had a corner. And then the following year we thought, I know what we need. We just need to make it more necky camber. It needed more necky camber on the back and all that sort of stuff.
Because a swing axle car, wasn't it?
It was a good, it was actually not a bad thing. The only problem being with drum brakes at Bathurst in particular, that when you come down the straight, you put the brakes on. All you knew was it wasn't going to go straight. It was either going to go left or right. But you got used to that after a while. And but anyway, look, anyhow, we just, as I said, we decided to lower the back springs and get a bit more necky on the back. Well, we're going to scrutineering, and Barry Ferguson was in one as well, and he's looking at our car and looking at his car. His car's up like this. And he said, "How did you get it?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. We just rallied it. I think it's probably sad, So we came to, and the boys are trying to hold the car up, as you walk along with the back mud guard, and to make it look not so bad, because we went through scrutineering. But anyway, we did that. But that particular year, there was the Renault R8s, the rear engine ones, are they?
Yes, the R8.
Gordis, Giordini, etc. And they had a habit of falling over. They'd come down Forest Elbow turn and roll over, because what was actually happening, if you're in the standard wheels, they would crack and then get caught up in the back caliper and like pulling handbrake on, and roll over. Or you could run the Michelin wheels and they would flex enough that they get caught up in the back brakes and fall over. So you had two options of how you wanted to fall over, basically. And I just advised him, and Harvey gets in, and I just get out, I'm standing, and he comes in 3 laps later, so I'm out here. One of these cars has just rolled over in front of him. He said,
I'm not going to do this anymore.
This is too dangerous. So once off I go. But look, it was a bit of fun. I mean, I think that was back in, gosh.
That would have been 66?
No, I think it was even 65, 66, maybe, okay. Right?
Yeah, and 66 was the mini year.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
Cooper
Cooper, but they kept on lapping us,
Yeah, they were quick little buggers.
No, they really were. But anyway, it was just different, a bit of fun. You look forward to going off the mountain, in those sort of cars, because up the hill they're a bit slow in comparison.
So when does it, at a point in time, your career is going along nicely, you end up with I suppose you would almost call it your first mentor being Doug Stewart, because he was the first guy that actually gave you cars, right? You had probably 2 to 3 years in Colts and rally, with 66, 67, 8, 9?
No, yeah, all the way through to 69. 69 we were in a Galant, I think, and that was the last rally we did for Mitsubishi. And that was a Southern Cross, and that was just before Bathurst, I suppose. Or,
No, just after Bathurst.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Bathurst first and then Southern Cross. I can remember very strongly.
Oh, okay. In 69, there you go. Was it 68 then I might have been in the Glen? I've got no idea.
Yeah, yes, because 68 was the last rally of Southern Cross down south.
Yes,
and then in 69 it went up behind Service Paradise.
Yeah, well, that was the one I thought.
Yeah.
But anyway, I didn't think that, because after Bathurst, we went straight to Lakeside and, all that sort of stuff.
Well, because that's when you were negotiating with Harry Firth.
Oh, I don't think there was any negotiation after we won.
Because there was a situation a little earlier in 68. Did Harry approach you about driving one of the Fords in the London Sydney?
No, not at all. Look, it was sort of when that was on. A few people. George Shepherd went and all the others and that, and we were just still mucking about, But we used to compete against Harry. Like when we had the Colt and everything else, and he had his Cortinas, of course. And, he won the 64 one as well, the Impole. So we sort of knew him, and he knew me, but that was about it. I think eventually it might have been Mike, one of the journos, Mike Cable, that sort of said to Harry that I'd done some racing, because he didn't know about the links and all that sort of stuff prior.
Because Harry was only interested in touring cars. He probably didn't even watch racing car races.
I guess so. It was the same with everybody in those days. We hardly used to watch other forms of the sport, And people used to say, "Oh, you must know my son Harry, because he's got a Formula B." And I go, "No, I don't know Harry." Oh, yeah, I did race a Formula B there for a while.
Indeed.
Yeah,
yes, black and yellow checks.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't know what happened there. Ray, who was managing director of Bardol, yeah. I'll think of that in a minute.
Anyway, we'll come back to that.
But yeah, so anyway, the Mitsubishi, and then really, The following year, that's right, we were nearly going to drive with Ricey at Bathurst after the Bleach in his mother's Hillman Imp. Because she owned it, of course, Anyway, and it was really funny. We went to John Hinksman to put an entry in at the ARDC and, Leichhardt. Anyway, he said, entries closed yesterday. Oh, yeah, but,
We're here now.
We're here now and we'll enter this in. He said, I'll tell you what I'll do for you guys. You can be the first entry next year.
That sounds like Mr. Hinksman.
Yeah,
Exactly.
no, he was a policeman, wasn't he?
He was a policeman, he was Crown Sergeant, and everything was run by the rules. And there were no such things as bending rules.
Bending rules.
So, when you look at that time frame, that's kind of where you met Gricey for the first time, and you and Alan had some moments together over the years.
Over the years.
Let's go back to '69, when Harry presented you with the opportunity of driving for him at Bathurst.
Yep.
In the first of the Monaros. Sorry, the second of the Monaros, the 350s.
Yes.
Stepping out of Colts and Bellettes and into a car that size with that much power, relatively speaking.
Sure.
You seem to just do it with consummate ease.
Yeah, well, it was an easy car to drive, and mind you, because I've been to Bathurst in the Lynx was faster than what the Monaro would have gone around there, of course, but it would also handled better.
But it didn't have doors.
No, it didn't have doors, but I mean, all of a sudden there were corners going up the hill. That was the first thing you noticed. Whereas before, you're just flat out. But look, Harry said, look, because he took, when Al Turner turned up, I think, and Ford sort of took him on as their boy to beat the Holdens, and Al, had some more drag racing experience and things, but he knew about tyres and all that type of stuff. So Harry got the flick, and I think Bagshaw just picked up, Harry at the time and said, look, So he got a couple of Monaro 350s, and don't forget, Bruce McPhee had won the previous year in a Monaro, but in the
327.
327. So it was going to be competitive, and he said, look, he said, we go to Sandown, and you and Spencer can drive it at Sandown, the car, and then 3 weeks later, Bathurst is on, And I said, oh, look, Harry, I've been committed to go to New Guinea to do a rally up there, in a bled of all things. But anyway, so he said, no problems, Cock, typical Harry. And he got Kevin Bartlett to come and drive the car, with Spencer. So anyway, unbeknown to us at the time, because we're in New Guinea, going through Kunai grass and all sorts of funny things, which is another funny event. One day I must talk about that. What happened was that Spencer, they qualified the car reasonable, and Spencer was going along, and all of a sudden had no brakes at the end of the straight.
Pit straight.
Pit straight. No, it wasn't pit straight, it was faster.
Oh, no, it was the front straight.
The front straight. And, it just sort of spun and went backwards into the Armco fence, went boom, caught fire, hurt Spencer's back. Anyway, so Harry, now there's been a few stories about this later, and I'm just not sure how to go here, because we think something stupidly went wrong, not by someone not taking out the road pads and putting the race pads in, because we used to drive the cars to and from the track, and it was quite common to run standard pads in the cars to bend the disc and things and all that sort of stuff, and then you just put the others in, see. It hasn't been confirmed anywhere, but Spencer was talking to one of the boys, and he said that to me, and I said, well, probably could have, because, Harry gets in the car and he said, it's got a full pedal cock, it's your fault, So anyway, there was only 3 weeks between Sandown and Bathurst. So what Harry did, we got new wheels for the cars, which had slots in them. The wheels that were on the car originally were a solid wheel without any slots in the holes in the wheels themselves. So the new ones...
For brake cooling. A bit of
brake cooling, yeah, that's what we were looking at. And then they cut under the front bumper bar a slot to let a bit of air in as well in the cars. So that probably helped, as far as everything else went. But so when we came back, and I hadn't driven one anyway, and he said, look, there's Amaru Park have got a day on the week before Bathurst where you can take your Bathurst car and give it a run. He said, well, you can't have, but we've got the old Iron Horse here, which is the first car that Harry got out, from the factory. And so I took it up there, just with Michelin tyres and things, rushed around with all these other cars with sign writing all over them and things, and we were quickest. And I said, yeah, that's not bad, not bad. So Harry was impressed, and then the following week, of course, Bathurst was on, and in those days when you get there, Friday, but I think it was only Saturday practice. And
3 practice sessions on Saturday, race on Sunday.
Oh, exactly, and one night's sleep and you're home again, basically. Well, we were up there and we've got the Michelins on. Anyway, and all the Fords turn up, with the race tyres on. And Digby Cook turns up with a set of Firestone race tyres on his Monaro. Well, I don't know whether it was Gagan or Moffat was on pole, and then Digby was either second or third or something, on the grid. Anyway, I saw that we had a set of Firestone race tyres in the truck. I said, Harry, come over and lend those. I went, no, Cock, they've got to be better, anyway, no, Cock, they won't fit your car. So it was just it was a grey area, no big deal, but to put the race tyres on, they were a bit wider, so you had to sort of just fold the mudguard.
The insides of the mudguards.
Flares just up, you know what I mean? So you didn't dig into them, basically. And evidently the McEnroe car, which was number 1 car, and Hank Walter's, it could fit on theirs, but it wouldn't fit on Rocky's or ours. So anyway, so I was 6th on the grid and best of the Holden, and of course, the race starts and Billy Brown, who had a shocker in practice, they're only running on 7 cylinders or something, where they found the other cylinder that night, so he's coming a bit from the back and comes charging down over the mountain and sort of finds a few Alfas and things in the road, and the next minute he's upside down, unbeknown to us because we were already gone. And not only that too, the first time up the hill, Moffat couldn't get a gear or something, so he was left behind, so it was nice. And then as the race progressed, there was Pete Gagan, I think probably Digby Cook, and me. And we're just going around and around and around, and then, I think Gagan blows a back tyre and sort of struggles into the pits for a bit of time. And then when Digby gets out of the car and his co-driver gets in, the car just went backwards. So here we were, going along up front nicely. And of course, we won the race. But, and it was one of those things that I think towards the end that they thought that Bruce McPhee might be able to catch us, right? That he'd had an unscheduled stop early in the day and was due to come in and put some more fuel in. So once that happened, we were back in, in the lead again. But yeah, so, well, I mean, what can you say? It just worked out that well,
It was just one of those days with all the cards fell face up.
Look, I think basically, Ford ran the tyres. I think Moffat was okay on the tyres because I think he was easier on the tyres than what the other boys were. They probably were the right choice, but they hadn't done any testing on them, and obviously it was the first time that you started running race tyres on touring cars that big as well, and on skinny wheels, like we only had 6-inch wide wheels or something for the tyres. So it was the right move because I think after that we all went to race tyres.
From 1970 onwards.
Yeah, ever. And I used to say was that the last time this Michelin won, that Michelin have come back and gone better now with race tyres as well, of course.
Because actually, if you go back to that, just after Bathurst, there was a national advertising campaign in the newspapers showing one of the Falcons in a pit stop
Yeah.
with a whole pile of tyres alongside it.
Yeah.
And the caption of the ad was, "We were a little deflated."
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah.
And because it was talking about the fact that the tyres had just not, they
No.
had lots of flat tyres
know,
and
yeah.
bursts and so on. But that was, I mean, to say that you started off with the Holden dealer team in spectacular fashion, first race for them, you win the first race. It's the biggest race of the year.
Yep.
Then you moved on to the Iron Horse, the rally car, the 350.
Yeah, but I don't think that was the actual one, because that Iron Horse was just used for lots of things. I think Peter's first wife, Heather, used to rallycross it at Cork, and we used to use it to tow things with or whatever. It didn't matter what it was, But like even before that, Ray, when you think about like straight after Bathurst, I should have mentioned Tony Roberts too, because Tony was co-driver,
yes.
And Tony and Bobby Watson, they'd won Sandown the previous year in the 327 Monaro, because they both worked at Holden, and that's why they were in the Holden dealer team in the early days. And then, the next race directly after it was Lakeside, the Lakeside 1500. I don't know what the 1500 represented, but it was called that. And it was in three races, and I won the 3 races. And and Billy Brown was there, of course, as well. And he said, come and see Colin Bond, the Bathurst winner, and Billy Brown, the Bathurst basher.
Yes, unfortunately, Bill and Skyline were the stretch between McPhillamy Park and Skyline was Bill's nemesis, that little piece of road.
Yeah, well, he was sponsored by, Paul Ramsey was one of the sponsors, and I can think of the other one who used the car dealer on drum. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Paul was quite wealthy, and so all the he's dead now, but I mean he did own all those hospitals and things, private hospitals were. So, and everyone used to say, Paul, why don't you buy a Bathurst circuit and let's make the bit the Brownies having trouble with different. So it was always in the first few hundred metres or whatever it was. Of course, I think his most spectacular one was the phase 3 or whatever, it was rolling along the top of the fence and that.
He had 3 accidents in that same stretch.
Yeah.
3 spectacular accidents that could have killed him.
Oh, absolutely.
Any one of those 3 could have killed him.
Well, you know the reason why he didn't get killed in that particular one, because the back seat, the seat broke and he finished up in the back seat. Yes. It was rolling along the fence just about where his head should have been,
Yes, where there's the steel posts, the uprights of the fence.
But, and the other one, might have been next year one or something or other, was the next one. And the boys used to practice pit stops like we all did. And Brownie got really close this time. He was within about 2 of coming in for the pits and then crashed. So they still didn't do a pit stop. Oh, look, actually, I still see Bill a lot, with coffee in the morning and that. He's a lovely guy,
Oh, he's super
just bad luck, I would say.
Yeah. In touring cars, yes, definitely.
No.
So, in that same time frame, moving on to 1970,
yep.
You're driving for Holden, you're driving for Parry.
Yep.
You had a little dalliance with Frank Matich and Formula 5000s in 71.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was interesting actually, because we had an offer to stay with Holden, of course, the next year, and Frank said, "Look, why don't you drive the McLaren, in the Australian Grand Prix at Warwick Farm?" Yeah, that sounds good. And then after that, we'll do the Tasman series, which is New Zealand and Australia. Then after that, we'll go to America and do the L&M series. See? Oh, that sounds really good. So anyway, to have a drive of the car for starters, we just went to Warwick Farm Short Circuit, which is, I don't know if anyone remembers now, but it was sort of just the top half past the pits, and then you went round over the causeway and
cut across.
So it wasn't really. There was probably only about 2 corners on the track, which represented the racetrack. Anyhow, so I was rushing around there, and I just sort of realised that the sooner you got on the throttle, the faster you went, basically, because they had a lot more grip than what you've ever had before. With the big tyres and the wings and all that sort of stuff. So I said to Frank, look, before we do the Australian, though, I wouldn't mind going somewhere where we can race the car on a proper track, and we could go to Surfers and do a race up there. So we did. Tommy Nailard was with us in those days. He came up with me, and we just took the car up and we went to Warwick up there, thinking this is going to be a really nice weekend. We'll just do the two of us and we'll do a race. And of course, Joan turns up to make sure that we don't muck around and all that. Anyway, Frank's wife. Anyhow, so we win the race. I think we're probably racing against Formula V's or something. I forget. It was just there wasn't.
It wasn't terribly competitive.
It wasn't terribly. No, it wasn't. But it was good just to be able to have a proper,
a
race.
proper run.
Yeah. Coming under the bridge fast and all that type of thing. So anyhow, and then the next race was going to be Warwick Farm, round to the championship, the Australian champion. Anyway, so we get there, and there was lots of good guys there. I mean, I forget now some of the, Surtees, I think, and there would have been.
Well, Graham McRae.
Yeah, I know Graham. He might have been there, but I mean, I know that, all the Matich and Bartlett and
all the
guys that normally
New Zealanders and the Australians.
New Zealand and Australia, and some overseas. There were, I think even,
Surtees was there.
Surtees, and
David Hobbs.
Not sure. Probably Frank Gardner. Frank might have been.
Oh yeah,
there.
Frank would have been there in a Lola. Yeah.
Anyway, look, and there was a Ferrari or something, in a little car from New Zealand.
Graham Lawrence.
Anyhow, it was the first qualifying or practice. It's raining, I'm going, never driven one of these things in the wet before, Anyway, and Frank says, look, I've only got 4 tyres mounted on wets, so I'll put them on and go out and do some laps and come in, and then we'll put them on your car and you can do some laps. And I'm sitting in the pits looking at these guys go around there going, oh my God, I'm going to be 10 seconds off the pace. I'm just convinced. So anyway, so we put it on and out I go. Well, I'm driving the thing out of control. I'm like a rally car, I'm going, if I know when they drive these things any faster. I'd arrive at quick, we'll lock up. Anyway, as it turned out, we're on pole. I think it was 3 seconds faster than Frank on the same tyres or something. And anyway, it did dry out though for the last session, and Frank was on pole in the end, and I was 6th, I think, in the car in the thing. And we were going on all right. I think I was just following KB around or something. And next minute, the harmonic balancer came off and it took all the oil pump drive off. So there was no oil pressure. So that was my race over and done. So anyway, I thought, that's all right. And next thing Frank says, by the way, I've sold the McLaren to Frank Matich in New Zealand, Paul's father.
So there goes your drive.
He said, but don't worry, because he built that A50, and that's what he ran. He said, we'll build another 850 though, right? Well, when will it be ready? Oh, well, not for the Tasman series, Oh, I said, Frank, if we're not going to do the Tasman series, I can't see how we're going to go to America, and never driven any of the circuits in America and all this sort of stuff, I think I might just stick with Holden.
So it was you. It was kind of like one of those things that one beautiful weekend.
Yeah.
And it just sort of evaporated into something that could have been.
Exactly. See, and I think, you would have gone a different route, I guess, if for argument's sake we did do the Tasman series and we did well, and went to America and did well, you wouldn't know where that would have gone.
Yeah, exactly.
But you also mean I might have had no legs anymore.
Well, that's quite because that's the early days of Formula 5000.
Yeah.
There were a lot of guys, particularly guys driving Lolas.
Oh yeah, the Lola limp.
The Lola limp, where your feet were in front of the front wheels.
Sure.
Not a good idea if you're going to hit something hard head on.
Yeah.
But look, that period of time for you, I mean. You'd been racing at that stage of the game probably for 7 or 8 years in various things. It wasn't what you would classify as a meteoric rise, but you just built one step on the other, and you were fortunate enough to have people watching over you and giving you the opportunity to take up the next step.
Sure. Well, I thought, particularly in Australia, it was nice if you drive for a manufacturer, basically, you know. And Holden were there, and I think, as we said, I mean, we rocked the word go. We won everything. We sort of went into with Monaro, and even the 12-hour race at Surfers, you know, again with Tony, you know. So we were fairly cemented into the team, and because Holden, Virgie, their managing directors and that back in America didn't allow them to go motor racing, but they could go rallying. The rally side of things became quite important, you know, for the dealer team. And because that was my main one, so we did the rally team, which, you know, the first year we ran the Monaro. I thought it was a bit of fun, actually, because we also did a round Australia rally in the
1970 Ampol trial,
yeah.
which was half around Australia, if you remember, because it went north from Alice Springs.
Yeah, but it started from every state.
Well, that's right. Yes.
If you know what I mean. And,
Yes.
you went down to
Adelaide.
Yeah, but down to
Port Augusta.
Port Augusta. And then there was a common route up, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, typical Harry, you know, because there was three of us running, you know. There was Barry Fergus in one car, John Kieran in another, and that, anyway. And he said, look...
you were the only three-man crew.
Yeah, we're the only three-man crew. Hopey and Tony and myself. Anyway, what we thought, Harry said, oh, mate, you know, if you want to go on this event, you better get down here and fix your car. Sort of, you know, so
build your car.
Exactly. So anyway, so the other two got built and went to scrutineering. And then we were a week late going to scrutineering, and you were penalised 1 point a minute for being late at scrutineering.
Oh,
see?
good Lord. Okay.
But this is only for the first bit. So we're now down 10,900,000, I don't know how many points, but yeah, it was sort of a lot of points there. So when we left, we just went straight to Port Augusta, you know.
Yeah.
And then from Port Augusta we went straight to Alice Springs, you know. So we got there a day early. Cooper Petey, fill up, sitting there. And so next morning we get in the car and drive back down through the control. And the guy wants to book us wrong direction. And I hope he's going off his head saying, where do you think we friggin' will come from? Darwin? You know, anyway. And I'm saying, oh, forget it. We're already down 9 million. What's another 250 or so? But then it all started from Alice Springs. That was the main event was basically that, right? So anyway,
Alice Springs, Tennant Creek, and then turn
yeah,
right.
well, that was a stupid part. But anyway, and the very first stage, because we're one of the early cars, was this little, before you got to Mount Isa, I think it might have been, there was this little goat track. And then you went into a sandy creek and you get bogged. And you're not supposed to have any outside assistance. So we're quite prepared. So we did this. So we get our turfer out and we go around the tree, you know, winch the car all the way across the sand, out the other. And just as we get out the other side, this farmer turns up in his four-wheel drive and starts charging everyone $50 if you're a factory team, or $30 if you're private, and he'll pull you out. So, and all our other cars came a bit later on, of course, and they all got pulled straight through. So we went from 0 to 0. Like we were coming last, I think, as we got to Port. All just about last. Well, another Harry, you know, because Harry's now looking after the other two, and we got to look after ourselves because, you know. So it took us the whole event actually, and we finally got up to, well, second really, but it was first was Ogier and Edgar Herman, you know, Ogier and
the Datsun and the Citroen.
In the Citroen, and they were on equal points, and then we were next, and we were pegging them back all the time, just that we just ran out of time. And I really liked the Monaro, you know, particularly in the Alps and things on the wider roads. It was a lot of fun, and so anyway, and we didn't have XU1s initially. We had GDRs for the very first following year. So Harry made them into rally cars, and I stuck with the Monaro, you know. And really, I really enjoyed it. The trouble was you got more flat tyres. It's just heavier, I think. And once they're heavier, and they're harder on the tyres. So it wasn't until we got the XU1s, which is the following year, that they became a better rally car, basically, you know. And then we won, 3 championships. Yeah. We should have won 4, except we broke an axle on the last event, and Peter Lang was always our teammate. He ended up winning the championship that year, and I was second again. I was like, right hell. Anyway, so it was a bit of fun, plus with the rallying. We also did New Zealand, went to the heat wave in New Zealand.
Because going back to the Monaro days, just for a moment, I can remember you were one of the guest speakers at this, that must have been the 1970 Southern Cross start, the event, before the event started. And I can remember you saying that that stage of the game, of course, we had the Datsuns and the Mitsubishis, and you mentioned the fact that the 2 litre cars were really fast little jiggers. They were fast uphill, they were fast downhill. But then you said, well, I'm in a 5 litre car, and in a 5 litre car there aren't any hills.
Exactly.
You actually explained the fact that the Monaro doesn't wheel spin. It digs trenches.
Oh, that's right. But not only that, going back to the little colt days, if you were going through the trees and you went a bit wide and you hit a tree, right? You have to put it in reverse and reverse back and then get back on the road and go, right? In the Monaro, you do the same thing. Hit the tree, it falls over, and you just keep on driving. They were just so strong.
They built, Harry built them strong because Harry was really more of a rally man than a racing man.
Yeah, I mean those sort of cars still were fairly serious production cars, but anyway, I mean it's a bit of fun.
I know we're jumping subjects a little bit, but when Larry Perkins went to England to try his hand at racing over there, did you ever think of going? Apart from the possibility of going to America with Frank, did England ever attract you?
Look, yes and no. I mean, I think the biggest problem is that looking back at it, I possibly should have if I had gone on the rally side of things. Because if you had gone on the rally side of things, there's more people, more chance of getting a ride for starters, and then you could do it for much longer. Than what, because look, you have Vickers and all those and Harry's and things that were still doing it, we're the racing side. But I think the biggest problem was that we never had the money. I can remember being on a flight when, Greg Lowndes was off to England.
To run in Formula 2.
No, well, he wanted Formula 5000 or Formula 3 or 3 litre or something. He had 3 litre things. Yeah. Anyhow, and he had $1 million. And I said, how did that go? He said, well, when I got to England and I converted to pounds, I only had 350. So he said,
yes, it was suddenly not enough.
That was not enough. And he said the trouble was, he said then, because he was with Walkinshaw in those early days, he said because he didn't have the money and these rich kids sort of come in and they finish up getting the top drivers because, they've got plenty of money and all that sort of stuff, And I think that used to happen in Formula 1 as well,
Oh, there was lots of paid drivers.
I think the Crasher, I think his old man, wasn't he Marlborough or something like that, and he always seemed to go to Marlborough ride and things, but,
So, just sort of casting forward for a moment, as one of the drivers, probably one of the very, very few drivers from your era who had such a wide range of experience in racing and rallying, in today's world, Shane Van Gisbergen is the only guy who is going down the sort of parallel path to what you did. How does that sort of, how does that make you feel in terms of how successful he is today? I think that you must be very parallel in the level of success you had.
Yes, but I couldn't work out. I mean, when you think about it, rallying, for starters, is not always done on dirt. A lot of the events are done on bitumen. And, particularly overseas, if it's a bitumen one, they change the car to a bitumen setup, let alone put bigger brakes and bigger, So, and there's no reason. I mean, there's been quite a few of us, really, that, have done both, racing and rallying and things. Jimmy Richards, for argument's sake, we used to race against him when he was in New Zealand, rallying. But look, I think that I think Shane is like any of the top drivers, and I think he's a class act at present. I think he's really got the woods on everybody else. He's a guy that's got very good car control, of course, and I think most of them have. They're saying that he's better in car control than the others. But you drive the car on the throttle type of thing, and you can actually make the car do what you want to do with the amount of throttle you give it, and I think he does that part very well. Because the idea is you've got to keep the tyres under the car and alive, and he seems to be able to do that a bit longer. I think back in our days, Moffat wasn't bad at that either, I think that we were pretty good. Brock was pretty good. There was you sort of knew that if you went sliding around the corners all the time, it's not going to last, so you drove accordingly, and the results were at the end of the day. And I just think that, I like watching Shane. I think he changes the car configuration a lot when you look at him drive. He's pulling levers, and he can outbrake people down the inside and don't lock up brakes and things. I think he's sort of got a thing where he can change the brake adjustment, like front to rear and things and all that sort of stuff. I just think that, out of all the drivers, and, how can I say it, he's certainly got his act together, there are some of the others who go right occasionally, of course, but he just seems to be the one that...
He's more consistent.
Well, it doesn't matter where he starts, he sort of finishes up in front.
Well, let's go back in time again, just for a little while. Think about Easter at Bathurst in '72, when you drove the V8 powered XU1 sports sedan.
Yeah.
Now that was for Harry,
yeah.
And that was kind of it wasn't the Beast, which became the rallycross car, right? But it was a series production XU1 with a 5-litre V8 shoehorned to the front of it.
No, it wasn't a 5-litre. It was only the small motor.
Ah, okay, right.
Yeah.
But this was kind of like the prototype for the XU2.
I think so. Well, he never said that, but he said, we just because we used to do 2 races at Bathurst every year. We used to do a race in the early in the year, Easter, and then you had the long distance race. We often would take a car up and try a few things because it wasn't necessarily a series production race that you're in.
It was more of a butcher's picnic.
Yeah, well, there's things you could do. You could try different camshafts or something, or you could try different things if you really wanted to, which you would let him feed into it, come the other time.
So this was Harry's first try at a V8 powered Tirana, which ended up, of course, in the different body shape.
Sure.
A year or so later.
Yeah, well, that's all been written, because they got bad publicity.
Unfortunately, the supercar scare.
Yeah, we're going to kill all these kids. Except they can buy much faster cars these days.
Oh, look, by comparison, they're just the ordinary bog standard road car, family cars today are faster than some of those race cars in those days. Much faster.
Can I just hold in for a bit? I'm going to pull some of this for my story.
Yeah.
So, Colin, when you were there at Easter with that car, I think you're saying you had no idea that was basically what he was planning for the October race?
Not really, I don't think. Look, it's as, what Harry would say sometimes, Cock, I think we should put a V8 in one of these things and see how it goes,
Yeah.
Sort of in that tone of voice, it wouldn't be...
Very experimental.
Oh, yeah, it'd be whatever. I mean, I had to laugh one time. I mean, Jesus, we're at Sandown and Peter had gone about a second faster than me or something, right? And he'd never beaten me anywhere before. This is anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think thinking, Jesus, he must be getting through those S's onto the front straight, without braking on. So I tried that, and I bounced off the bloody Armco with the back and thinking, oh, geez. Anyway, I got it down to about half a second, and I still couldn't get there. I'm sitting in the car, and one of the engineers from GM came up to me and he said, oh, that camshaft we got in Rocky's car is working really good. I'm going, oh, Jesus, bro. Wish you had told me. I mean, here I am trying to kill myself sort of thing, work out all of a sudden.
Yes, there was always that sort of differential between in the way Harry treated his two main drivers. Oh, look, it was the Melbourne-Sydney thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but see, Peter was there all the time. He lived in Melbourne as well. But yeah, look, I spent a lot of time down there because I had to, otherwise I couldn't get the car finished.
So 72 was your least happy, least successful trip to Bathurst?
Oh, yeah. Well, it was... It started off all right, of course. I mean, look, I keep on saying the XU1s were a really good car, just about most circuits we went to, but at Bathurst, you could get outgunned in qualifying in particular, by the Fords. And even some of the also ran Fords, that would get one lap together or whatever it was. So you're always a little bit behind, catching up. But anyhow, when it was raining on that particular one, and those days too, we never did a lap beforehand.
Cold size. Yeah.
Well, not so much that. You go to the boys would push the cars out and put them on the grid, You wouldn't even see the car until you walk out. And Harry said, hey, Cock, what do you want? And I said, what do you got? He said, tyres. I said, he had some Goodyear wets, and he had these Dunlop hand groove things, right, which were like an intermediate. And I said, oh, Harry, I think I'll have the wets, and then went to the loo. Well, when we come out, the wets are on Brock's car and the Dunlops are on mine, see? And I said, Harry, he said, listen, Cock, he said, this rain won't last. He said, and these tyres will be really good then. Well, he was right, but I didn't last either, because... I mean, the tyres, they were just the wrong tyres at the time. I mean, yes, you could have driven slower and all that sort of stuff, But I just understand, going through the lefty, and it's gone out, it's hit the bloody Armco. It's gone up on two wheels, and I've seen those drivers driving two wheels, but this is not a problem. And then it went on its roof, and then you see all this road disappearing through the windscreen, and you got the brakes on as hard as you can push them,
While they're paid.
Yeah, while the wheels are up in the air. And then it went to the inside and did another 1.5 with Pike, I think, and finished back on its wheels. Oh, my God, oh, damn it. I got out and I could see a little bit of smoke and went, oh no, the radiator's gone, So you have a look around the car, and I thought it was stuck in the mud anyway, so I left it there. I went back and they said, how's the car? I said, it's not bad. I said, get the fencing. Well, they brought it back after the race, and Boomerang Towing must have been a Ford lover because he put a chain through the roof,
through the windows,
and just picked the thing up, and it's gone like a pyramid, and proceeded his drive down, letting it smash into the back of the tow truck, coming down through the S's. Well, when it got down, it was wrecked. I'm going, it wasn't that bad when I left it, Oh, God almighty, anyway.
Oh, dear me. Oh, gosh. The whole exercise of working with Harry and Peter, I mean, as you said a moment ago, on most occasions you were quicker than Peter.
Yep.
Certainly in the earlier part of your time together. It's always been one of those questions, was there favouritism from Harry? I mean, I think that you can't say yes or no.
No.
It just sort of looked that way from the outside.
Well, I think what Harry would do, sometimes he would put us on different tyres, for argument's sake, and which are the better ones.
Even before you start.
Oh, no. It would say, yeah, no. Or yes, yeah, I've got the right one. Anyway. But look, we had such a selection of tyres in those days. I mean, now they don't have a selection. They just use the same tyres, same compounds, and we sort of got to know which were the better ones for different tracks, because some tracks suited some of the tyres more so than the others and things, but...
there were times when, like, the Dunlops were brilliant everywhere except, say, Winton, where they were terrible, But you've said years ago, losing the 74 Bathurst race in the new L34 Tirana, it was the most disappointing race of your life because you were 6 laps up.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, but look,
That was tell us about the day.
Well, what actually happened was that Harry had gone to dry sumping the motors, and the only way you could dry sump the motors, you have to do it electronically. In other words, you have electric pumps scavenging the oil from the sump into the container, you know what I mean? And then the container was fed to the gears and away it went. Because what was actually happening with V8s normally, when they raced, they used to pump a lot of the oil up into the top of the motor and it would sort of stay there. So a lot of them used to put pipe cleaners and things in the tubes going up where the oil normally went up to the top to try and stop the flow going to the top of the motor. So the dry sumping thing was going to be that you couldn't do it mechanically like you would do today or everyone would do it today. So what they didn't realise was that because there was no oil in the sump nuts started to vibrate and come loose. They only came loose on my car, but it was enough to let the oil
dribble out
and get on the exhaust. So they kept on like flagging me. Well, of course, you know, the boys bring me in, they look under the car. Well, you know when there's oil under the car, there's just no way you know where it's all coming from. It's sort of
just a mess.
And luckily then it started raining. So I could go out and the spray covered the oil, I think, you know. Oh, look, you know, I mean, that was probably one of the things that didn't work for Harry. But look, once we did that, you know, next time obviously you lock wire the nuts and you do, you know, you
learn from
by mistakes, you know.
Exactly.
I mean, look, honestly, when we had the 6-cylinder Tiranas, we went through a stage where everything started falling off them, like the flywheel would fall off, right? So you'd lap it in and you would bolt it on. Then the harmonic balancer would fall off, so you'd do all that and put that on. And then something else, you know, it had a bad vibration. And the other one that really, Bathurst, which annoyed me a bit, was probably later on, might have been, and we were leading that by a mile. And I thought, look, I'll just take it easy down the straight. Instead of revving it to 5.5, which we used to do every time, I was just using 5,000 revs. And unbeknown to me, that on the dyno they said it gets a bad vibration or whip on the belts at 5,000. Just that, you know, it's right when you're going through it. The fan belt came off. And I'm driving it around looking at the temperature go up and so we had to stop. And that's the time Bobby Morris won, basically, you know. And so we had lots of those.
Lots of those afternoons.
Well, you know, even Johnny Walker, when he was with us in, it must be L34 days, we were leading that too. And he jumped in, and the axles were quite fragile in those things. So you have to be careful accelerating over the ripple strips. You know, if you're on the ripple strips, you wait until you got... Anyway, he must have been broken axle, so they had to come in and change the axle. So down you go again.
There you go again.
But anyway.
So... In 76, you decided to jump ship.
Yeah.
You went from Holden, where you'd been for a long time, 7 years.
Yeah.
And you joined Alan in the Ford team.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he made you, as the movie says, did he make you an offer you couldn't refuse?
I wouldn't say that. He actually got paid. Because, oh no, I won't go too far there. No, it was all right. I mean, yes, we got a better offer. But he also had Carol Smith coming out to engineer the cars and all this type of thing. And Carol was really good to work with. Like, if we went testing, he would actually have drawn out what we're going to do. Right?
A plan.
A plan, absolutely. You know, we worked to the plan. You know, Harry, you go, you know, what do you think, Cock, you want to put some rear springs in it or something? Oh, that'd be good, Harry, you know, or something, you know. So it was just a bit of hit and miss. So that was it, you know, and not only that, I think at that particular year, the Falcons were the best. You know, like we came first and second, I think, just about in every race we went in. So much so that I used to have to wait for Johnny Harvey, you know, just because Moffat had to win because he was the boss. So I wait for Johnny Harvey and, you know, let him pass, and then if Lappel said to do, I use it on your sort of waves. But trouble was, the next year, of course, they had the A9X, so they had the better mousetrap.
Oh, they had a much better mousetrap.
So, that was wrong. You know, and the fact is, if you go down that track, what really happened at Bathurst, it's sort of a bit annoying. And I probably should have just won it and not worried about next year, as we turned out.
Yes, because the next year the cars, as you say, you know, the same car as a 77 went to 78 with different headlights. That was about all.
And Carroll had gone back to America and all that sort of stuff. You know, it wasn't working. Basically, that's all.
It wasn't working as well.
No, and we had gearbox troubles and things, all sorts of stupid stuff. You know, that went wrong with them.
As a sidebar, interestingly enough, you might remember that I think it was 78. Channel 7 did a TV program it was called This Is Your Life.
Right.
And you were the subject of one of those programs.
Yeah.
And Carol Smith they brought him back out for it. Right. And Carol said in that evening, he said, I won't try with the American accent. No. I've been working with racing drivers all my life. I've seen all sorts of different approaches to the way you get ready to race. He said there are some guys who sit in the car for an hour getting their head round what they've got to do.
Moffat?
Possibly so. And he said, now with Colin, I've seen Colin take as much as anywhere between 5 and 10 seconds to get ready. You were just one of those guys that just got in the car, turned it on, and away you went.
Oh yeah, I think you do things. I mean, like, see, Alan was a bit strange in the fact that he would get in a car. If we went back to 77 and we had Jackie Hicks come out, right? Well, we're there on Wednesday, aren't we, or something stupid, you know? But Moff got in his car on Wednesday and didn't get out till about Saturday morning, you know?
And Jackie was sitting around.
Jackie's sitting around, you know? And I said to him one time, take our car for a drive, Jackie. Yes. You know, which he did. There's a couple of photos of him with his helmet in our car, actually, anyway. And he said, if I get invited back next year, I'll have him come on Saturday. It's pretty pointless coming any early, you know. But, look, he was terrific. But, I mean, do you want to go through that bit of the race, or is it being over and done with?
No, that bit of the race is wonderful because, I mean, basically it's kind of like the difference between working for Harry as a team manager, working for Alan as a team owner, right?
Yeah.
You know, so tell us about 77.
Well, I mean, okay, 77, we get up there and we're going around. Practice is going pretty good, really. You know, we've qualified the cars pretty well close. Well, we've got in the front off to get now.
I think 2 and 3.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was faster. Brock, yeah, we was just lucky. Anyway, so we discussed what we're going to do. And I said, look, I had Alan Hamilton driving with me. And I said, I'm going to do the first 2 stints because, like, you could break the race up in quarters, basically, because you could do a quarter on the fuel. So you could get to halfway, and as long as you got to halfway within 3.5 hours, because that was the time limit allowed, you could do 2 stints. And then I said, Hamo's going to get in and do one, and then I'll finish it off because I've been driving the car all year, and he's happy with that. And we'll say, no, I'm going to start, then X is going to get in, then I'm going to get in, then X will finish. And I said, fair enough, but that's what Alan and I have agreed on, so away we go. So the race starts, off we go, we're out in front anyway. And I come around and stop, you know, quarter distance, new tyres, fuel, off I go. Moffat's car's in next stop, comes out, and I'm in front of it, behind me. And I think X is in the car now, see, and I think, well, this is where I
disappear.
You know, he's thinking, well, he's still learning, it's got no, well, anyway. So off I go, and I'm going pretty hard. And this car's hanging on to me. I thought, shit, I know he's been not a world champion, but he's driven Formula One and won Le Mans, you know. He must be really good. So I get to the straight and wave it past, and as I look, Moffat's still in the car, see? And I said, "You arsehole, you said you're going to get out."
So he copied your plan.
Well, he knew, I think, that if the way things were going to go, that would be the case, that we'd rack it off. So anyway, so we both get out of the car at the halfway mark, and I get out, and I'm standing in the back with Sir Brian Ingles, and that was the time when Moffat got out, and you only allowed so many people over the fence and everything else, and poor old Moffat was blisters and, you know, and almost collapsing, and in so much so the boys picked him up and threw him over the fence so that you could get everyone over the count that you needed. And I just said to Sir Brian Ingles, "It's certainly a young man's sport, isn't it, Sir Brian?" Dear,
accurate but cruel.
But anyway, and then obviously the two of us are in a caravan, I suppose. There wouldn't have been motorhomes really there in those days. But anyway, and he suggested to me there, he said, "Look, why don't we get out? Why don't I get in your car and you get in my car? So on the day, we'll be the winner. Just one of the co-drivers will miss out, see?" And I sort of said, "Oh, look, no, the cars were slightly different, not much. I had a slightly different differentiator him and think, but basically they were the same." And I said, "Look, no, we can't be to come first, Nick. I'm sure we can." So I knocked it back there. But in saying that, had we done that, we could have been disqualified, I think, because
the cross entry.
The cross entry, but that only happened if the other car stopped, I think. I don't think if both cars were going,
you were allowed to.
Well, I've never checked that one out, but I'm just sort of, it was always, that's how Brock did it. Every time, like, his car would stop or something, so he'd get in the other car and continue on. So it would have been great, wouldn't it? If we went first and second, then we both get disqualified. It would have been
really cool.
Yes. But anyway.
Would love that.
And then when the co-drivers got in, obviously X picked up probably about a minute on Alan, because Alan was driving properly and looking after the brakes. And then when we got back in again, I started trying to narrow the gap to Moffat, you know, and I was still doing it a bit. Then out of the blue, I got 10 seconds on him. And next lap, another 10 seconds. See? Gee, if I keep this up, I'll win by half a lap or something. Anyway, then the thing came out, form finish 1-2. I thought, oh, shit. So what had actually happened to Alan's car, which we found out later, was that, you know, Jackie had nearly worn all the pads out. And then when Moffat got in, he wore the rest of the pads out. And then he wore the backing plates out. Then he wore the pistons out. So it had no front brakes at all. And the cars need the front brakes to stop because they take 90% of the stopping power, you know. So he only had rear brakes. And so in the end, I thought, oh, if I keep going like this, you know, I'll just slow down. And as it turned out, and catch him on the last lap, and away it went. You know, and you know, even Nick said to me after it, "Oh, you are stupid, you should have won the race." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, if you're in Europe, you would, because how can they go crook at you if you win?" You know, that was his philosophy. But anyway, look, as I said, I think at the time it was probably the right thing to do. But look, you know, it didn't work out that way. You know, he dudded me money, you know, and if I had known that, I would have won the race, you know. So. Understood.
Well, friends, that's the conclusion of part one of our episode of the Australian Muscle Car Magazine podcast series featuring Colin Bond. We hope you enjoyed the tales contained herein and look forward to seeing you again soon. In the meantime, be sure to check out musclecarmag.com.au for news stories, news and galleries from the Muscle Car Vault. We add them weekly, as well as brand new digital issues as soon as they become available on the newsstand. Thanks for listening, and as always, safe driving and happy reading from the team at Australian Muscle Car Magazine.